welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is my Commander Legends Retrospective. So I had made a video similar to this already. I called it Biggest Commander Surprises, which maybe was a little disingenuous. Basically, it's reviewing sets that have been out for a while now, right? And I like going back and looking at sets after they've been out for about a year or so, right? I think a year is good enough for them to permeate into the Commander community, get everyone a chance to play with them, make decks with them, stuff like that. And I think it's really interesting to go back and look at these sets. And of course, Commander Legends being the most impactful set in the format thus far. I mean, if you look at my video about the most popular sets from the format, I have it ranked as number one. Of course, I'm leaning heavily on the actual commanders from the sets in that video, which I think is the most important part. I think if you included the cards in the 99, it still would also be the most popular set in the format by probably even a wider margin. But Commander Legends has been out for about a year now. So let's go back and take a look. And of course, for this, I'm going to use EDH Rec. It's the best option for sort of seeing where the data's at. You know, I'm a big numbers guy, and so that's why I like to use it. I realize it's not entirely accurate to the popularity of certain commanders. You can never be entirely accurate. I think it's a pretty good estimation of where things are at. So let's take a look here. I'm actually on the EDH Rec page looking at Commander Legends. It's at edhrec.com. If any of you guys want to check it out yourselves, maybe you want to follow along. And talk about biggest commander surprises. Lysa Shroud of Dusk is the most popular commander from this set. Man, that blows me away. I would have never guessed that. And you guys can actually go back now and check, to see how accurate I am. If you're feeling ambitious, with all of the other sets that I talked about before this, there is no record of my opinion. This is the first set that I actually sort of did a review on. One of the first videos I did on my channel, actually. So it's a little archaic. But nevertheless, I believe, if memory serves, Obeka was number one. So this is after the set had been out for a couple months. Obeka was number one by quite a wide margin. Arami was number two. Yurlok was number three. And for me, that made sense. I was like, okay, Obeka has a very interesting but powerful ability. Arami, same thing. Yurlok, same thing, right? They all had abilities that you could really do a lot with and were also very unique. And to me, commanders that are really popular have both of those things. They're powerful, a lot of potential. Not necessarily they're really powerful, but what they're doing has a lot of potential. And then on top of that, it's unique and interesting. So it was Obeka, Arami, and Yurlok 1, 2, 3, and then I believe Gen was number 4. And then I think Lysa was number 5. The fact that Lysa is the top commander from this set is pretty shocking. And when I saw this a little ways back, I was really confused about it. When I was doing my most popular commander sets video, is the first time I noticed this. But then I played against the Lysa deck, just like last week. And again, for me, the confusing part is this feels like a Staxy kind of deck, right? Whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. That's something everyone's going to hate. It feels very similar to Cabal, and whenever I'm in a game and someone has a Cabal deck, they always become the arch enemy pretty quickly because everyone gets annoyed by losing that life. But this guy actually was just playing a Black-White Angel deck, so maybe that's why. Maybe the popularity of Lysa is because there's a lot of people. In fact, we'll just click on it here. For anyone who's not familiar with EDH Rec, you can just click on it and it'll show you what people are playing. So yeah, it's looks like a lot of Angel Tribal stuff. The new Lysa, I guess, kind of works in the deck. There's Cabal. So I guess people are doing that too. Sanguine Bond, Veto. See, these cards to me mean that people are doing the life drain thing, which, man, people really don't tend to like that. There is a lot of hate cards in here from the look of it. There's also a lot of life gain. So yeah, I guess people are just doing a whole lot of different things, which is probably why it's so popular. So we're doing a sort of a Staxy hate bear strategy. We're doing a life gain strategy, although there's already lots of black-white life gain commanders out there. And like I said, I think we're also doing an Angel Tribal, a black-white Angel Tribal as well. So that's probably why that card is so popular, because there's a lot of different things going on there. But definitely a surprise for me. I thought the problem with Obeka and Arami a little bit less, but definitely Yurlok, was that they were what I call monolith commanders, right? And monolith commanders are commanders that have very unique abilities that you basically need them on the battlefield. Yurlok is the best case of this, right? Because there is literally no card in the game that does what he does, right? Creating mana burn. No other card does that. So if your Yurlok isn't on the battlefield, your deck really doesn't do much, right? I talked about in that video how people use a lot of huggy effects in that, where you're doubling mana and stuff. So if your Yurlok's not on the battlefield, your deck basically becomes a sort of a bad hug deck, which isn't very good, which is probably, in my opinion, why Yurlok sort of waned a little bit. It's still pretty popular. I mean, 1400 decks is good, but like I said, it was number 3. Now it's number, 5? You know, it's just waned a little bit. And I think that's part of the reason. Again, Obeka, the same thing. I think people realized, I mean, the first Obeka I played against, the guy plays his commander and I kill it right away. And then he plays it again a couple turns later. And again, I killed it. And that was it. And he literally did nothing for the entire game because I had killed his commander twice. And his deck didn't really do anything without his commander. Whereas with a Lysa deck, I don't think you really need Lysa in play in order for your deck to do stuff, right? There's lots of other things you can be doing if your Lysa isn't in play. Of course, we got Icy Tyrant of Gyre Strait is number 3. That was quite a bit lower. I think a lot of people weren't that interested in it because you already had Tatyova, which does almost the exact same thing. But maybe Icy has actually, they got to be around even. I noticed Tatyova has lost a lot of popularity. It used to be way more popular. Icy, I think, has stolen a lot of that popularity, right? It's sort of like with Omnath and Lord Windgrace. When Lord Windgrace came out, Omnath was one of the most popular commanders in the entire format and has waned in popularity because a lot of those people that were playing that Omnath deck switched over to Lord Windgrace. I think the same can be said for Tatyova and Icy. Do people say Icy, by the way? AC, Icy? I'm not sure how to say that. People like to correct me on my pronunciations, but I like Icy because it kind of looks like it's in icy waters. I don't know. Anyway, moving on down the list, of course, we got Gen. Again, not a big surprise there. However, I'll just say a lot of people like the curse strategy with Gen. I would like to go a completely different route. I had already mentioned a couple cards like Corrosion that I think fit fantastically in a Gen deck. You could even do like an ETB enchantment deck with Gen, which would be interesting. A lot of people thought it's a great curse commander, and it is, sure, but now that we have Lindy, right, the actual curse commander that came out in Innistrad, I think again we might see Gen wane quite a bit because of that. For all the people that were using Gen as a curse commander, they're going to maybe switch, even though it is different colors. Still, I think you'll see a lot of people switch. Belbay, that's one that, you know, it's hanging in there. 1200 decks is quite a bit, but I thought that would be more popular. I mean, there's just so many busted things you can do there with all that mana. I guess your opponents get it too, but still. Quain is the one that probably, I mean, other than Lysa being number 1, Quain is the one that surprises me the most. Man, when I first saw this guy, I was just like, ugh. Like, I mean, I guess people are playing a hug strategy, and we can actually check to see what's going on here. What is going on here? I mean, you got Wedding Ring, which just came out, which is a huggy card. I guess you're going to win with Triskaidekaphile. Flumph is sort of a huggy card, so maybe people are just playing hug. Looks like it. Cammy the Crescent Moon. I mean, with Teferi's Ageless Insight out, when you activate that ability, right? Because the big thing about Quain is you can't even force a draw, right? Like, if you can force a draw, that can be built around. You can't even force a draw here. Each player may draw a card. Then each player who draws a card gains 1 life. So, I mean, you can't even force your opponents to draw. They can just forego it. Whereas, you know, effects like Dictate a Crewfix, Cammy the Crescent Moon, you have to draw. Teferi's Ageless Insight, you know, breaks symmetry there because, of course, you get to draw 2. Hull Breacher was another one that went into this deck, but that's banned now. But it looks like people are just going with a hug strategy, and then I win with Approach of the Second Sun, or, you know, maybe I win with Lab Maniac. You know, looks like that. We got Wyleth, we got Hamza. I mean, this all kind of makes sense. I thought Archelos would be a little more popular. Again, huge miss there, not making this Bant colors. Why this is not white, I don't know. Maybe he's hanging out in a swamp, that's why he's black. To me, this card should have been a Bant for sure, and I probably think it would have been a lot more popular if it was. You got Blim. Again, Blim is another one of those commanders that, because you're playing that, I don't want to say hateful strategy, but the strategy where I'm giving my opponents nasty stuff, really there's no other way to play this. You know, this is another one that people are really excited about when it came out, but it's hanging around the middle because, you know, a lot of people don't like to play against that strategy. So I think a lot of people ran out and made a Blim deck. I've had a lot of people ask me to make a Blim deck on my Underwhelming Commanders series. This is a bit too popular to be an Underwhelming commander, in my opinion. I don't think it's underwhelming, and I don't think it's unpopular. It's got almost 800 decks here. That's quite a bit. I didn't think it was a great commander right out of the gate. And again, you could probably watch my commander review where I talk about it. I didn't like that it has a deals combat damage trigger. So first of all, you have to attack. So you got to put a bunch of haste enablers in here, and then you have to connect. You know, if your commander has flying, it's not that difficult to deal combat damage, but nevertheless, they can just remove it. If it's an attack trigger, you just attack, and then if your opponent removes it, you still get the trigger, right? A deal damage trigger, you swing at one of your opponents, right? Because they're all going to be sitting there going, all right, is he going to attack me? And whoever gets attacked, right? If I'm playing in this game, I have my swords to plowshares in my hand, waiting, and if I get attacked, that Blim is dead. It's never going to touch me. If it attacks opponent, I don't care, right? So that, again, that's another drawback there that I didn't really love about it. And again, I didn't really love the fact that it is so obvious what you're doing there. Your opponents know you're going to be donating nasty stuff, so they're going to be killing your commander all the time. So that's why, even though it is a fun, interesting commander, it's hanging around the middle, I think, for that reason. Lathiel, I think, is fantastic. I'm surprised that's not more popular. Felice is another one that I think was a lot more popular right away, but did fall off quite a bit. Nevinril, which I did on my very first Underwhelming Commanders video, and again, that's not very underwhelming, and it's not very unpopular. I probably should have checked. I didn't actually check when I made my first poll how popular the commanders were. I just put people's suggestions on there. You got a Modi, Abomination of Llanowar here. Amareth I thought would be way more popular. That it just seems like such a powerful ability. It's in Bant colors. Just seems like you could really go nuts there. I made an Amareth deck briefly. Didn't love it though. I'm actually surprised how popular Jury Master of the Review. It seems a little underwhelming what it's doing. However, what I really liked about it, and again, I made a jury deck. I probably made about 50 decks from this set, and I'm not even exaggerating, right? It's why I started my channel. I started my channel because I was making so many decks from Commander Legends and then just scrapping them because I didn't like them. I thought, well, why don't I use them for something? I'll just throw them online. So I started my channel basically to post decks that I was making from Commander Legends so that at least somebody could use it. I like that Jury says whenever you sacrifice a permanent, right? Put a +1/+1 counter on Jury. You know, so you can crack a fetch line, you can sacrifice anything, a treasure token, and put a counter on it. Maybe people realize that after the fact, because this is one that was definitely right towards the bottom in the beginning and has gained quite a bit of popularity. There is a lot of sacrifice support lately too, I suppose. Nimrus is another one I thought would be a lot more popular. I'm surprised how popular Averna is. I actually made an Averna deck for a patron of mine, and it's a Cascade commander that doesn't have Cascade on it, right? So that's kind of the difficult part. Luckily, they came out with a lot of Cascade support in this set and have continued to do so. So the fact that they've come out with more Cascade support in recent, in the last year since this came out, I think maybe has gained a lot of popularity for Averna. Nimrus, I think, is fantastic. I actually don't have my Nimrus deck anymore. It was a little on the boring side, a little bit too much. I'm doing everything on my opponent's turn. It's a very controlling style, just not a style I love. I think it's a great commander, though. Kangi, wow. 500 decks for Kangi. That is also a little bit surprising. I mean, to be quite honest, it's kind of a boring, flying tribal commander, but I guess there is a lot of people playing flying tribal. Also, I didn't love when Kangi attacks. Attacking creatures with flying get +2/+0 until end of turn. So again, your commander has to actually attack before you get the bonus. Don't love that. Kolfener, again, it's a little lower than what I would have expected. A lot of combos there you can do, hey? So that's why I thought it would be more popular. It does cost 6, though. You got Hands, which is right around where I thought it would be. I figured people would have a little trouble with that one. Same with Gormuldrak. Same with Nostro. Same with Zara. Pretty much this whole row here are all commanders that have interesting abilities, but I think people had a little trouble figuring out how to exactly build it. And of course, Hands, Gormuldrak, and Nostro are all commanders that I have deck techs for on my channel. Those are the ones that I saw and I thought they were interesting, and let's build a deck and figure out how to work these guys. Zara, I think, is, I was just thinking about this the other day because I'm just about to start playing actual spell table via webcam with my patrons, right? Paper Magic, something that I have not done in a long, long time. And I'm kind of excited about it, but then I was thinking, oh yeah, I can't play certain cards. And Zara is most certainly one of those commanders that you can't do that with. So I'm wondering if Zara, because obviously you have to look at your opponent's hand and take a creature and put it into play, right? So if you're playing via webcam, that just doesn't work. doesn't work at all. So definitely an interesting ability. People like stealing their opponent's stuff. So I think this commander definitely got hurt a lot by the whole, playing via webcam sort of scenario. And then, of course, on the bottom row, you got Belborka, and, no big surprise here, Rayev. I mean, for crying out loud, you have a Boros or an equipment commander in the same set as another Boros equipment or, Wyleth, which is a lot better. Like, why would anyone play this one? I'm surprised it has 100 decks, actually. There is a ton. Like, they really, in a row, had a whole bunch of really good Boros or an equipment commanders. I'm surprised anyone's playing Rayev. It's probably the worst of the bunch. But, underwhelming commanders. I mean, I get it. Sometimes people like to play unpopular stuff. Tuya Bearclaw, definitely not one to get excited about. Neither is Captain Vargas Wrath. Also fairly obvious what you're doing there, right? I mean, Tuya Bearclaw was another one that a couple of people asked me to do an underwhelming commanders video with. And I'm just thinking, when it attacks, it gets +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. Seems fairly obvious what you're doing there, right? So I don't know if there's a specific way you could go about it. The only thing I'm thinking is what I do with my Shanna deck, where my Shanna, again, is sort of just a big vanilla creature, but I sacrifice it to like a greater good and draw a ton of cards. That's sort of the strategy with that deck. I get my Shanna really, really big and then sacrifice it to certain effects to draw cards and stuff. Tuya, you could do the same thing with that deck, where it gets big. You have to attack with it first, though, so it's a little bit tougher. And then, you can sacrifice it, draw a ton of cards. On your second main phase or something, it is a fairly inexpensive commander, so that strategy might work as well. But moving on to the partner commanders, of course, and there was 41. Man, I don't like that. That was a lot. And these are not in order of popularity. I'm not sure why. If anyone in EDH Rec is watching this, I don't know why you guys put your partner commanders in alphabetical order rather than in order of popularity like you do with everything else. I'm not sure if there's some programming reason for that. Nevertheless, a Chroma is one that, man, 700 decks. That's a little surprising. 7 mana commander. I mean, there's a lot going on there, no question, for sure. I think it's a very interesting build around, especially when you partner it with certain commanders. Elena, I mean, yeah, not bad. Hanging around in the middle. Aluhara, Salam Ritualist. Not really surprising there. 81 partner decks only. You really could go through, and maybe I will do this, just find interesting partners to go, like, what's the best partner for Alharu? I mean, Nadir, maybe? Right? Nadir's doing +1/+1 counters and doing tokens. So I think you can make a decent black-white +1/+1 counter / token theme there, right? I don't know, maybe that's what people are doing. Inara, man, I'm actually surprised there's 170 decks. I just, like, as long as it's your turn, commanders you control of indestructible, I'm going to partner this with a white commander, any white commander, and then just board wipe on my turn all the time, right? That's the best way I can think, because it's only on your turn. I guess you could put this in the 99 of a deck, right? Doesn't have to be your commander, and it can make your commanders or commander, however many you have, indestructible on your turn. Still, though, like, it's only on your turn. I don't know. Ardenn, oh boy, that guy's a popular one. And I was just looking at the Boros commanders, and man, one of the most popular. I'm actually going to go do it right now, and we'll go take a look. We'll take a little bit of a detour here and go look at the Boros decks really quick, because I was just looking at this the other day. Number 4, right behind, well, not right behind Winota. I mean, Winota's got 2,200 decks. This only has 1,500, but still, Ardenn and roguerack. Wow, popular. Hey, I mean, I never would have guessed that. I mean, obviously, we know what's going on here, right? You're just sticking a bunch of equipment on your roguerack and going nutty with it. Everyone loves that roguerack. But 4th most popular, Boros Commander? That's a little shocking. But back to our partners here. Armix, I really liked Armix. I like that it's an artifact creature. You can build around that. It's a golem. It's got an interesting ability. I did use it in my Offspring's Revenge deck. Obviously, I liked it just because I needed the colors, and also I liked having the discard. Took that deck apart. I honestly, I liked it, but I didn't love. It's just hard for me to get really into a deck that isn't built around the commanders at all. And the more games I go without casting my commander at all, just sort of, I don't know, it just feels bad. I don't know, just the way I am, I guess. Breaches, of course, any pirate tribal deck, you're going to have a lot. I imagine there's a ton of pairings with Breaches and Malcolm, right? Brynlin, 200 decks. Wow. Congratulations, whoever's using. Like, to me, this was the worst partner from the set. 8 mana. Oh, and you're not even getting a lot of payoff, right? I mean, whenever it enters the battlefield or whenever you cast a spell, mana value 6 or greater, you may return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And the obvious pairing here, I think, and I'm going to skip ahead, is Golanra, right? Because again, that's that 6 or greater theme. That seems like a good pairing. And Simic obviously seems like a good color pairing for that. You know, casting big things. Dargo, almost 700 decks. Wow. And again, not only is that a good partner that could partner with a lot of different things, I think, but it also can go in the 99 of a lot of decks, right? Any deck where you're making lots of treasure tokens, making lots of, any kind of tokens, just getting a 7/5 trampler out for next to nothing is a pretty good strategy. Elegith, 600 decks. Yeah, no surprise there. And obviously any deck that is using Elegith is going to be the prime partner, let's say, right? Typically there's one partner that you're more so building your deck around. And if you're using Elegith, I imagine that's the card you're building around, because that's such a unique ability. If you would scry any number of cards, you draw that many cards instead, right? Obviously that's the one you're going to be building around, because you're going to want to put a lot of scrying in your deck. Over 600 decks, that's pretty good. Seor, 300 decks. I mean, again, if I have any commander that is a really important commander to me, Seor is great, right? My other partner, whatever my other partner might be, if it's Elegith or whatever, Seor is just going to protect my commander from getting removed really easily. I actually had just thrown this in my Dorothea deck because I thought, well, when the Dorothea flips into the enchantment, now it's still my commander, so it's still going to cost people. If they want to Krosan Grip my Dorothea aura, it's going to cost 6 mana. So I thought that was a good inclusion there. So it can be really great in the 99 of decks as well. But I mean, it's got 300 total partner decks, so that's pretty good. I thought, again, with Tymna, I think it's a fantastic fit as well. There's a commander where you're building your deck around that commander. People are going to want to remove it. Adding blue to a black-white deck is great. Having a 1/3 flyer that can get in for damage and draw you a card, I thought that was a great pairing there. Falthis, again, very similar, 300 decks. And again, I think you're probably pairing this with a more primary commander that you probably want to be getting in for damage, giving it death touch. I made my patron another one with Jeska, right? The red planeswalker, because Falthis pairs so well with that second ability of dealing X damage to each of up to 3 targets. So you can just remove one counter from this and it's going to deal 1 damage to up to 3 targets. So you can kill 3 creatures with Jeska if your Falthis in play, right? Because your Jeska's going to have death touch. Even though it is a planeswalker, it is your commander. Ghost of Ramirez Di Pietro is, to me, the one that really flew under the radar, where when I first saw it, I was like, that's kind of silly and dumb. I don't like it. And then I realized all the things that you could do with it, right? Can't be blocked by creatures with toughness 3 or greater. Okay, that just means you're going to be getting in for damage a lot, which is great, because whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose up to 1 target card in a graveyard that was discarded or put from a library this turn. Put that card into owner's hand. So the way they worded that, I think, really confuses people. It allows you to do it on your opponent. You're never going to do that. I can't imagine there's any reason why you would do that. It just allows you to discard a card on your first main phase and then get it back immediately, which is fantastic. There's a lot of ways that you can use that. Also works really good in a mill strategy. So in a Sidisi deck, I attack with my Sidisi, I mill 3 things in my graveyard, and one of them is a demonic tutor, let's say, that I want in my hand. So I'm also attacking with my ghost, and he connects, and then I get my demonic tutor back. So I think it's a great inclusion there. It is a really good partner commander with a lot of strategies where you're discarding or self-milling, but also goes in the 99 of a lot of decks, I think. Already talked about Gillanra, Glaceon. That's an interesting one. I just want to point out, I made a Denic deck and I put this in there originally. I took them out because it costs 6. That's a lot. Tap and tap X untapped artifacts you control, right? All those clue tokens, all those treasure tokens, all those decks that are making lots of artifact tokens. This works good. It works particularly good in a Denic deck, I think, because you look at the top X cards of your library and you put one into your hand, and then one of the cards going into your graveyard is a creature card that's going to trigger your Denic, and you're going to get another clue token. So it is a good inclusion there, but what I was doing with my version of the deck, it didn't really fit. Helana, of course, another, I think, a really underrated one. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. When you do, that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. I mean, that just seems really great if you have any sort of a death touch team. In fact, Helana, I think, could go in my Questing Beast deck. I do have a bit of a death touch theme there. I'd never thought about this before. It might actually fit there. Technic, Salvage Splicer, almost 600 decks. Wow, that's a lot. And again, whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put +1/+1 counter on Technic and a +1/+1 counter on each golem you control. So again, that's treasure tokens, clue tokens, right? This is another commander that has gotten a lot better. Every time your opponent sacks a treasure token, you get this trigger. I, again, had made a deck with this, with Akiri. So I thought Akiri, like the original Akiri Line Slinger, I thought we're making a bunch of tokens, then we'll sack those tokens. And whether or not you sack them or not, Akiri will be bigger, right? All those treasure tokens will make Akiri a lot bigger. And then when we sacrifice them, Technic will get a lot bigger and our other golems, right? I thought it was a good fit. Probably a ton more support for that deck since I made it, right? It's been almost a year since I made that deck. Of course, you got Jessica, as I talked about already, Kamal, Heart of Krosa. Man, 735 decks. Again, an 8-mana commander. Really surprised it's that popular, but it's a great finisher, right? You can partner this with something a lot smaller and cheaper. And then when it's time to end the game, you throw your Kamal down. Kedis, another great one. Emberclaw familiar, right? It's an 883 partner decks, which, I made a Malcolm and Kedis deck, which I thought was a great fit because whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So any commander that's dealing combat damage, you might want to include it. Works particularly good with Malcolm, which is why I made that deck. And we'll go down and look at Malcolm, because it's whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage, right? That's not combat damage. So your Malcolm will trigger when Kedis deals that damage to each other opponent, right? It deals that much damage to each other opponent. So it is the commander, right? Whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent. So it's your Malcolm dealing the damage to each other opponent, but it's not combat damage. So combat damage won't work, but something like a Curiosity will work because that doesn't care about combat damage, just cares about damage, any kind of damage, right? And again, Kedis is another one that fits in the 99 of a lot of decks. Kelith, Sunmane familiar. I mean, yeah, it's okay. 300 decks, that seems about right. Casket is another one that I liked a lot. And again, this is another one that people might want to revisit. Only 384 decks, sacrifice 3 other artifacts and or creatures to look at the top 3 cards of your library and put 2 of them into your hand and the others into your graveyard. Again, all those tokens out there, right? You guys got those decks in there that are cranking out treasure tokens. Might want to take a look at this card. It might be a good fit there. Kodama of the East Tree, almost 1,700 decks. One of the most popular partners from the set. Again, we're not in order of popularity here. So Ardenn is 1,900, right? Chromas 700, yeah. So looks like probably Jessica's 975. So Kodama of the East Tree is our second most popular so far, behind Ardenn. I definitely would have never like Kodama of the East Tree was the one partner from this set that I think everyone was like, oh, that's too much, too powerful. I think they probably should have said whenever another non-token permanent enters the battlefield or whenever a non-land permanent. I thought that it was way too broad. But that being said, I don't think we've seen, I don't think I've even played against it. I made a Kodama the East Tree deck. My Tormod and Kodama deck was the very first deck tech I did on my channel. I don't think I've played against a Kodama the East Tree. I'm trying to think if I've ever played against one. I don't think I have. So yeah, a lot of buzz about this card when it first came out, but really, not much going on. I mean, it's definitely powerful, no question. But 6 mana does hold you back a little before you can really get going. Krark was another one that people were they were just loving it. And again, 1,400. I mean, the fact that Ardenn is more popular than both of these is really surprising. 1,400 is a lot, but I actually thought it would be maybe the most popular from the set. Actually, and I haven't looked yet, but I'm guessing Sakashima is the most popular partner commander from this set. We'll see. I don't actually know. Livio, man, this is another one that I just think is great. There's so many things you can do with it. I made my Livio and Sakashima deck. I thought that was a really interesting deck. Livio, I've seen there's a lot of partner decks with Nadir because it's a great fit there because Nadir has a leaves the battlefield ability, right? So when you blink your Nadir, you get all those tokens. I definitely, though, think he partners really well with a lot of different partner commanders. Even if it's just I save my partner commander from removal by blinking it, right? Malcolm, again, 1,800 Malcolm decks. Wow. So again, more Malcolm decks than Kodama of the East Tree or Krark. That's surprising. Yeah. I mean, again, though, it's one or more pirate. I mean, how many is, let's go back and look at the other pirate there. Of course, they go really well together. So yeah, 1,200 for breaches. So I imagine there's a bunch of breaches and Malcolm decks, right? We can actually, I'm curious. Let's click on here and I think they'll show us the partners. Yeah, so almost 1,200 of those decks are with breaches. And then Kedis, again, there's the deck I made. There is 300 decks, 341. Vial Smasher, there's an interesting one. That's not a pirate, so I guess that would be more of a Vial Smasher deck and they just want blue in it. Tymna, of course, Tymna goes with everyone. Tana, there's an interesting one. Do I have a Tana? I made a Tana and Malcolm deck. Yeah, I totally did. And here's why, because they both make tokens. So it was a teamer token themed deck. Really interesting deck. I don't know if I love it though. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to hang on to it. Dargo, there's a pretty neat partner. Again, you're making those tokens that you can sacrifice to Dargo, right? And of course, he's a pirate as well. Back at it, of course, you have Miara and Nadir, and again, I made a mono black Nadir and Miara deck and also sadly got rid of that. I'm starting to wonder, I made so many decks from Commander Legends and I'm starting to wonder if I have any left. I don't know if I do. I just recently gave my Miara and Nadir mono black elves deck the old heave-ho because I made another deck that was a heavy black token theme, which I'll talk about in a future video, so I'm not going to talk about it here, but I made a mono black token heavy theme. It actually came out of Henrika. I did my Henrika deck from Innistrad, Crimson Vow, and that deck sort of transformed into another deck with a different commander, and it was very similar. You know, it was, I make a bunch of tokens and sacrifice them and all that. So it was just too similar to, you know, and I just don't like having decks that are too similar. So I was like, yeah, I'll take my mono black elves deck apart. Sure, why not? But I imagine there is a few there. And also, you know, again, like you look at pneuma here, here's pneuma. This seemed like everyone was going to do black green elves because that's, you know, you want green with your elf deck typically. 367, and that's just because pneuma is just so bad. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay double X when you do distribute X+1/+1 counters among any number of target elves. So 2 mana gets you 1 counter? That's brutal. If that had just been X, I still don't think it would be that fantastic, to be quite honest. I mean, that you're paying a lot of mana every combat to do that. Prava. I've seen a couple Prava decks. I made a Tormod in Prava deck that was built mostly around Tormod, and I wanted white. And, you know, obviously Prava's going to make those 2/2 zombies into 3/6 zombies, right? So that's pretty good. So I used Prava just for that and the fact that I wanted white in the deck. Radiant, Zara, Archangel, only 87 decks. And again, I haven't looked at the least popular partner from this set, and 87 seems pretty low, although I think Alharu is only 81. Wow. Yeah, people really don't like Alharu. I mean, I think Radiant is worse. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking here. 7 mana. Tap another untapped creature you control with flying. Radiant gains protection from the... So she can't even protect herself. I mean, she should be able to tap herself, I think. It's weird that they did it that way. The art is super sweet, too. It's a shame. But 87 people seem to like it. Rebecca, Architect of Ascension. Right about where I thought it would be. Again, giving your artifacts protection can be problematic, right? It's sort of like Shroud. It makes it so that you can't really target it with your own stuff sometimes. Roguerack, 2,700. I guess when I made my prediction, I had forgotten that Roguerack was already in one of the most popular Boros decks. So there's Sakashima, 2,400. So yeah, Roguerack is the most popular partner commander from this set. I haven't gotten to the bottom yet, but there's no way anyone's more popular than that. Sakashima is number 2, so that, again, is not surprising. I'm a little surprised by Rogue. I know everyone liked it, 0 mana. You know, other than the, you know, taking advantage of the I cast my commander lots of times effects, there's a lot of those out there, so it can be good there. But other than that, mostly you're just doing a Voltron strategy there, I think, aren't you? To me, Sakashima is the most versatile one. I've used Sakashima in about 3 different decks now. I'm actually kind of surprised it's not the most popular commander from the set. Sengir the Dark Baron, little disappointed. I mean, I think everyone was, because Sengir is such an iconic sort of character in the game, I think everyone's a little disappointed that this wasn't more, you know, the design's not great. However, I will say whenever another creature dies, you put 2+1/+1 counters on Sengir. That's any creature, tokens, anything, your opponent's creatures. So this guy's going to get big fast. I think he can go in the 99 of a lot of decks. In a lot of decks where you're sacrificing creatures, or you could just throw this in the Toxtril deck. Why not? He'll get huge. You'll have this huge flyer you can close the game out with. So it could definitely fit there. Sienna, Eye of the Storm. Pretty shocked that this has 449 decks. Pretty shocked because it's, man, very underwhelming. I mean, even if you're playing Flying Tribal, this isn't great. When it attacks, so again, you have to attack with it. You get to scry X, which is pretty underwhelming, where X is the number of attacking creatures with flying. Oof. I'm going to actually click on this one because I'm curious. Okay, so Elegith, right? That seems like, so 391 decks, that's almost all of them. And then there's a few Radiant decks. Timna? That seems like a weird one. Why not just partner with Essior, where you're getting the protection ability and also you can get in for damage really easy, and also you're getting the same colors. But of course, Elegith, even though if I'm building an Elegith deck, there's way easier ways to scry than I attack with my commander to get the scry. So I don't know if you need Cyane to get the scry, because there's a lot of easier ways to do it. And then, of course, you're stuck in mono blue as well. So, I mean, whatever, though. Slurk, all ingesting. Yeah, only 100 decks. Everyone was super excited about an ooze commander, but it's not really an ooze commander at all, right? Doesn't do anything with oozes. It's a +1/+1 counter theme, and not a great one. Tavash that, of course, Planeswalker partner, so it's going to have at least 1,000 decks. No surprise there. There is 9 partner decks with Prismatic Piper for some reason on here. Togo, Goblin Weaponsmith, has 1,000 decks. Not surprised. I'm actually surprised not a little higher. There's a lot you can do there, right? You're making artifacts, you're making equipment, you're making a lot of things you can sacrifice. I made a Togo and casket deck. Again, I'm cranking out all those tokens, and now I can sacrifice them to my casket. So, and again, works in the 99 of a lot of themes as well. And then Tormod, 800 decks only. I thought it would be a little higher than that. You know, it's really easy to manipulate that. Cards leaving your graveyard is such an easy, like even a Crucible of Worlds. Just put a Crucible of Worlds in your deck, and when you play that land card from your graveyard, you get a zombie token. Seems pretty good. And we'll just talk about the 99 cards here briefly, because this video is going really long. I hadn't intended on talking about every single commander from this set, but I just can't help myself. And it is the most impactful commander set, so I guess it only makes sense that I would talk about it for a considerable amount of time. So what are we calling these lands here? Training Center, Rejuvenating Springs, the Battleborn Lands. I think that's what I call them. I don't know if there's a name for them. Obviously, they're fantastic for Commander. The original ones, the allied color ones, were printed in Battlebond. I love that they revisited it and brought the enemy color lands in. Of course, they're going to be some of the, if not the most popular cards from the set. No big surprise there. Jeska's Will is, I mean, if you look at, they do it by percentage here, right? So the Battleborn Lands are like 30%-ish. Jeska's Will is only 19% because obviously you can go in all red decks, but it's in 39,000 decks. Wow. 39,000. That is a popular, maybe the most popular 99 card from the set, right? Looks like it is. Opposition Agent, 30,000. No big surprise there, right? Great card. Just talked about this in my Hating on Tutors video. Wheel of Misfortune, 21,000. Again, a card that I really, really like. I liked this is sort of the fixed version of Wheel of Fortune, right? And I like that a lot. And it's a little less annoying. Also, I don't love wheels. I find them to be a little annoying. You know, I plan my turns like several turns in advance. So I'm figuring out what I'm going to do for the next few turns, and then an opponent casts a wheel, and I'm like, well, there goes that. And of course, that is an advantage for my opponent, just a little annoying. I actually really prefer Wheel of Misfortune, because when an opponent casts this, I can just go, yeah, I'm good. I'll just pass. Almost always, I'd say 90% of the time when a Wheel of Fortune is cast in a game, I'm not up for drawing 7 cards. I'd rather keep the hand I have. Chromas Will. Wow, 18,000 decks. That's a lot. I mean, it's a good card, no question. I played a game recently where a guy ended somebody with this, right? He had a giant commander, made it flying vigilance, double strike, and just flew in and did that double strike commander damage and just ended the guy. Keeper of the Cord, of course, one of the best, man, maybe this is the best white ramp card out there, I think. Just even if you're not talking about specifically ramp, just getting lands into play. As far as just a white card that gets lands into play, this is probably the best. It gets you caught up, right? It's going to get you caught up very quickly. It's going to get you caught up with everyone else, which I really like a lot. And then as an added bonus, hey, let's make some soldier tokens. So really great card. I'm not surprised at all that it is in so many decks. Again, though, Jessica's Will, 39,000 decks. Wow. Of course, Hull Breacher is banned. Still in 18,000 decks. I'm sure it was a lot higher than that before it got banned. And of course, we have Jeweled Lotus, which I'm probably going to end this video talking about. And it says here 37,000 decks. Jeweled Lotus is in. And this is one of the issues with EDH Rec is, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Again, I think it's the best site for any kind of data in the format. The only problem is, like, I don't know what the price is. Oh, it actually says here. Wow, nice work, EDH Rec. It looks like it's about $100 right now. It was originally, I think, $300 when it first came out. So all those people who bought it right away must be feeling bad. But Jeweled Lotus, first of all, my opinions on it, I don't love it. I don't think it adds anything to the game. I don't think it makes any game better. All it does is, if you happen to have it in your opening hand, which, as I think I said in my original video of reviewing it, I felt like a lot of people would just mulligan a whole lot to see if they can get it in their opening hand so they can get an explosive first turn. That's why people like Sol Ring so much. Sol Ring's not that great on turn 7 or 8, right? In the beginning, people like having that explosive start, like, yeah, Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, look at me. I think it just makes you a target. I don't like doing that at all. In fact, often when I had a Sol Ring, because I don't really play it anymore, even though it is in a couple decks still, when I had Sol Ring in my opening hand, I wouldn't play it turn 1. My strategy was I play a land past turn, even though I have a Sol Ring in my opening hand, because I know the first turn Sol Ring makes you a target. I'd wait till the next turn. I'd wait till turn 2, then I'd play it. And it really eases up, making yourself a target by playing Sol Ring turn 2 rather than turn 1. You'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes. Jeweled Lotus is sort of that strategy on steroids, obviously, because it's free. You can get your Perforos out turn 1, which is bananas, or your Urza out turn 1. I'm sure it gets played a lot in CEDH. I've never seen this in a game. I have yet to actually play a game where someone had a Jeweled Lotus, whether it be online or in person, which it's in 37,000 decks here. So I'm just thinking, with this sort of data online, people make deck lists, right? All the deck lists that I have made for my channel and posted online, I didn't pay a dime for any of them, right? I just typed the name and that's it. All the cards posted here on EDH Rec, people didn't necessarily pay for them. They just made a deck and then posted it online. So the fact that Jeweled Lotus is in 37,000 decks, to me, means that a lot of people just added it into a deck list that they made and then posted it online. I don't know how many actual Jeweled Lotus are out there in existence. I think there's probably a whole bunch of people that bought a ton of them right away. I think there's a bunch of people that, invested in them, if you want to call it that. I don't know if it's a great investment, because I think a lot of casual players won't even touch this card. I certainly will not. Again, I just think, other than the fact that it's expensive and it is sort of a feel bad card, where if you're going to play this turn 1, just like a Mana Crypt, same kind of thing, where your other opponents go, oh, he's playing a really powerful deck, or he's playing a really expensive deck. It just makes them feel that. Even if you're not doing that, it sort of brings that feeling into the game right from turn 1, which I don't love. And, again, though, I've never seen this in a casual game. I've never seen anyone play it. So maybe those people had it in their deck, but just didn't get it out. I don't know. Nevertheless, it is apparently in 37,000 decks, although I might make the argument that it isn't actually in that many decks. Who knows? But that is it. That is my very lengthy review of Commander Legends. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, obviously, right? I wanted to talk about all the commanders and get into the 99 even a little bit. It's been a year, and obviously it's the most impactful set on the format to date, and maybe it will always be the case. Really, a lot of surprises there, I think, for me, though. And after going back a year and looking at these cards, I find it interesting, and I like doing this. I will be doing it with all of the sets. Although doing, this set in a single video, obviously, I didn't want to cover any more sets like I did in the last one. In the last one, I think I did about 4 or 5 sets. This one, I just wanted to do just Commander Legends, because obviously there was a ton to talk about. So what are the biggest surprises for you from this set? Commanders, maybe even cards in the 99? Comment below, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.